from one Jeff to the other. B's a G-E-O-F-F.
It's traditional spelling.
The traditional French spelling.
I've never been good at standing still, so I'm going to come down. Most scientists regarded the new streamlined peer review process as quite an improvement. That's not entirely wrong. My name's Geoff Hays. I'm a resident here at IU. Has any of you had national meetings occur at your home institution city before? So you know the subtle joys of giving a presentation after a night shift?
Not fun.
Oh, it's the best. I've had an unreasonable amount of caffeine, so I'm right on the verge of atrial fibrillation. We'll see how it goes.
Hotel, though, right?
No, there's rules about that. All right, we're going to talk now about what to do when you get an invitation to review a paper. And then after that comes in, Andrew's going to take over about what that review is going to look like. Believe it or not, getting the invitation to review the paper and what reviewers do with that invitation is a point of contention amongst kind of the reviewer community, because a lot of these just sit in the inbox and nobody responds. And I know that you guys all like sending out text messages and then getting no response back for a while. So we're going to talk about the mechanics a little bit and how to deal with the invitation. The invitation email is this big boilerplate. Thank you for agreeing to review for us today. We're very pleased to have your opinion, things like that. That kind of goes through and will ask you if you want to review a paper. Usually you'll get the title of the paper and a brief abstract about what the content is to give you an idea if you feel like you have the time or the expertise to sit and judge that paper. Kind of the main take-home point from this slide is don't ignore it. If you are a reviewer for a journal and you are invited to review a paper, you need to make a decision quickly about if you're going to do that or not. Because to leave everybody hanging on for you to answer, which is not a very professional move or things to do. These can kind of be long and they can kind of be wordy. They're a little bit boilerplate. But ultimately, they're going to give you the baseline information you need to make an initial decision about where to go once you get the invitation. So you'll see the abstract will be attached to the paper. Typically, they request you to get the job done within 14 to 21 days as a usual kind of standard amount of time to have to review an article. Once you get into it, that is enough time to do it, but you got to kind of be intentional about what you're doing. You might ask yourself, why me? Why, during this month that I'm a resident, I'm currently in the ICU, or I'm doing my, for some reason, string of night shifts in the ED, have I been chosen to review this paper? It's important to realize that all submitted manuscripts get reviewed by the editor-in-chief or by a decision editor. And then when they decide to send that out for review, reviewers are selected based on the perspective that they can bring and the things that they can add to the review process. So you've been chosen because you probably have some area of expertise or some aspect that they want to hear from. They're going to really want you to be there to judge the quality and the validity of the paper. How good of fit? What's our goodness of fit here for our paper into this journal? You're going to help the editors make a decision, and we're going to help the authors improve the quality of that manuscript, improve the writing. Going through a review process, a refining process is important. Anybody who has submitted a manuscript knows you get some valuable comments. That last point is important. This is not a standard journal club action where as a reviewer your job is to tear down a paper and then just send back a bunch of nasty comments. It's counterproductive to what we're trying to do. So you're going to ask yourself, am I a good fit to review this manuscript? I've read the abstract that's been attached. I think I might be interested. So what makes for goodness of fit? Do I have enough expertise? Believe it or not every PE manuscript needs to be reviewed by Jeff Klein only and nobody else, right? Expertise is broad. So if you have content expertise, that's important. Manuscript about a paper for a new drug for stroke or a new window for thrombolytic administration might need expertise from people in neurocritical care, pharmacology, administration, learners, academics. These are areas of expertise that you might have. You don't need a PhD in neuroscience to comment on that paper. So when we're talking about areas of expertise, believe it or not, you in these rooms have areas of expertise that are important to the readership of the journal. Do I have the time? Don't sign up for something you don't have time for. Essentially, if you're about to go on vacation to Europe for 2 weeks, probably not a good time to agree to review a manuscript. And can I be fair? If you've ultimately decided that nobody should ever get thrombolytics ever for acute stroke and nothing's going to change your mind, maybe that's not the best paper for you to review, right? If you're open to concepts, want to get more information, get things going, and you feel like you can give an objective opinion, that might be something worth doing. RSVP quickly. So The AEM letter kind of has two links, right? I agree, I disagree. That sends a notification back to the decision editor who has selected you, and then it gives you access to the full manuscript. Look at these arrows. This is high tech right here. So you pick one. I accept, I decline. Some of the journals will link you into their kind of secure database that is going to give you the option to select drop-downs or things like that. But ultimately, you really got to kind of read down to the bottom and then click if you're going to accept it or not. All right. Once you accept the paper, we're going to assume you're going to accept it, otherwise this presentation's over. Thanks for coming. It's good to see you all. You're going to get another longly worded email. This is going to be your link into the secure software that's going to allow you to submit your comments. This is going to give you access to the full manuscript for your review. All right. You might ask yourself, what do I do now? I've agreed to do something, I don't know how to do it. AEM does provide some resources about how to think about a review. How do I break it down? How do I go through it? This is in your handouts. We're not going to go over it now. We'll kind of get into it as the presentation continues. This has a range on it. All right. When you agree to review a manuscript, you have some obligations, right? You've made a commitment to do something. Let's do the thing we've agreed to do, okay? So some of the things to be cognizant of are timeliness. You and I both know a patient comes into our ED with chest pain. The longer it takes me to get that EKG, to read it and recognize that we're having a STEMI, to activate the cath lab, to give the patient aspirin, to get them upstairs, is going to compound, right? Delays in the triage process or delays in my ability to evaluate that patient is going to propagate to delays down the line. It's no different in review, right? Delaying in agreeing to review a paper, delaying in submitting your comments is going to delay the answer that we give to the authors. These people have worked hard, and they put a lot of time and effort into preparing a manuscript and submitting it. We owe them our timeliness kind of as we're doing the review. Ensure confidentiality. Do not tweet about what you're doing, maybe. This one really should be a no-brainer, right? You should not be kind of discussing the process or the manuscripts with people who are outside of the process. Keep comments to your decision editor only, because we owe that to the people who are reviewing these manuscripts as well. Be honest. You got to give positive and negative comments. That's how we grow. That's how we're constructive. If you don't feel you've got the ability to give an honest response, it's probably not a paper that you should be reviewing. I should have learned this by now. All right. You're going to see that kind of as we go through, you'll have the opportunity to make comments to the editors and comments to the authors. Comment that you make to the editor of the journal is not seen by the author of the paper, but the editor can see kind of all the comments you make. Typically, comments to the editor are brief, they're kind of blunt and more succinct, right? This is the sign out that you're going to give your colleague in the morning. Mrs. Jones is a 75-year-old lady who's having chest pain. She has some acute changes on her EKG, but no STEMI. She's positive troponin. She's on aspirin heparin drip. She's being admitted to cardiology or medicine or however that goes. Comments to the authors are a little bit more broad, right? We're going to kind of break down what we think. This is when you sit down with Mrs. Jones. Hey, I see you're having chest pain. Here's what I see. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what we're going to do about it. This is an opportunity to provide constructive feedback. The tone is a little bit different here. The comments to the authors tend to be a lot longer, and they're a little bit more in-depth. All right, reviewers are scored. Journals are looking for great reviewers. How do you know if you're a good reviewer? How do they know if you're a good reviewer? When you do a review, the decision editor is going to assign you kind of a score for how you did, usually from 1 to 4, right? 1 is didn't really do a very good job, 4 is outstanding. How do I get a 4? Timeliness, being honest, ensure confidentiality. It's pretty much kind of the way it goes. People who kind of work hard and are trying to build up the specialty are kind of going to get some of those higher scores. What's the benefit of getting more scores? More papers to review. One leads to another. Oh, look. I'm half pediatrician. We had to put a star in there. All right. There's gray zone, right? It's not as easy as, yes, I'm going to do this. Good for me. I'm going to sit down and tell everybody. There can be some concern about, am I suitable to review this paper? Why did they ask me? I don't know anything about subarachnoid hemorrhage. I don't know anything about suicidality in the emergency department. This is the time to reach out to the decision editor. This is a person with expertise. This is a person who's chosen you as a thought process that you might not be in tune with yet. And this is a person who's involved in conversations on the more editorial board level. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask, hey, what are you thinking about this? I'm concerned I might not be a good fit. Kind of give me your thoughts and perspective. I'd encourage you to take their advice seriously. These are great people and great resources who are here to kind of help us kind of develop our own skills as we become reviewers and move on from there. But this is a great time to reach out to those resources you have, because this is not a lone journey alone. All right, ethical obligations. When you get the manuscript, you're going to look it over, peruse for content. If you're a content expert in whatever subject we're talking about, you're probably going to have a good familiarity with the papers that have been done in the past, what work has been done on this subject, where are we going. If you are getting through and you're like, I know this. My wife was discussing this yesterday at dinner. I know who wrote this paper. I know what center this is going on. That is a conflict of interest, right? Reviewers really should not be able to identify the authors, and they should not have an intimate understanding of the project that's being undertaken. So if you read the abstract, think it's pretty good, get the full manuscript, read through and think that you might be able to detect what's going on, you have an understanding, or you yourself might have a conflict, that's a time to reach out to the decision editor and kind of make them aware of that. Ensuring anonymity. That is one that kind of we've talked about. It's on here for a second time because, again, we want to make sure that the authors are comfortable. The AEM engages in a blinded reviewer process. Some journals don't. Some journals are doing open reviews now. There's pluses and minuses to both systems, but under here we want to make sure that you remain anonymous, they remain anonymous, because that will foster more honest comments. All right, this is the bumper slide. Guess what? We've made it to the actual review. I can see the excitement on all of your faces now. All right, Andrew?